What are your...
Winnie and Francis.
You've got a Winnie?
Yeah, I have a Winnie.
Oh, because my first job was in a nursing home, and my favourite patient was called Winnie. And she used to sit there and wet herself.
She's one of the most celebrated actresses of our time, elegant, sharp, and endlessly talented. But behind Cate Blanchett's calm, poised exterior lies a woman who's not afraid to call out chaos, ego, or unprofessionalism in Hollywood. Over the years, she's clashed, sometimes subtly, sometimes boldly, with some of the industry's most powerful figures. From silent feuds to very public fallouts, these are the tensions you never saw coming. Why did these relationships sour? And what does it reveal about the darker side of fame?
I definitely had my, I was full goth, very emo though.
Okay.
And I listened to like only heavy metal music, and I would dye my hair black and only cut it with.
Cate Blanchett is often referred to as one of the most refined actors in the industry. Known for her elegance, precision, and powerful performances, she commands a level of respect that very few can match. With multiple Academy Awards, Golden Globes, and BAFTAs under her belt, she is often seen as Hollywood royalty. But behind the polished image lies someone who doesn't entertain nonsense. Blanchett is known for being strict about professionalism, and she's been vocal, both through words and actions, about her intolerance for behavior that crosses ethical or creative boundaries. One of the earliest and most defining moments in Blanchett's Hollywood experience involved Harvey Weinstein. The now-disgraced producer was once one of the most powerful figures in the film industry. Back in the late 1990 CE, Cate Blanchett's career was gaining serious momentum, following her breakout role in Elizabeth and the global success of the Lord of the Rings trilogy. At the time, Weinstein was a key figure behind many Oscar-winning films, and working with him was often seen as a gateway to Hollywood stardom. But Blanchett's experience with him was far from aspirational. She recalled feeling uncomfortable when Weinstein was brought on board as a producer. Though she didn't go into graphic detail about every interaction, she shared a moment that stayed with her for years. During what should have been a professional discussion, Weinstein leaned forward and told her plainly, "We're not friends." According to Blanchett, it wasn't a neutral statement. It was a thinly veiled threat, more of a warning than a reminder. The comment carried an implied message: comply with his expectations or face negative consequences. In an industry where speaking up could cost a career, many chose to stay quiet. But Blanchett didn't play along. She responded firmly, saying, "I'm not interested." That simple sentence wasn't just a rejection, it was a boundary drawn in sharp contrast to Weinstein's usual behavior. The encounter didn't escalate into anything more dramatic in public, but the tension remained. According to Blanchett, it was a clear sign of how power was misused in Hollywood, and it marked the beginning of her growing discomfort with the culture surrounding some of the industry's most powerful figures. Years later, when the Me Too movement gained momentum and numerous survivors began to come forward with allegations against Weinstein, Blanchett didn't hesitate to support them. She spoke out against him publicly, sharing her own unease about their past interactions and confirming that his behavior had long been a problem. In an interview with Variety, she confirmed that she had experienced firsthand the type of intimidation many others were describing. She also made it clear that, in her view, Weinstein's actions were not isolated incidents, but part of a long-standing pattern of abuse and manipulation. Blanchett's support for the Me Too movement wasn't just a matter of public relations. She took an active role in calling for accountability, both within the industry and in the broader conversation about workplace ethics. She encouraged other actors and professionals to speak up, and she used her platform to draw attention to the need for change. In a speech at the Cannes Film Festival, where she served as jury president in 2018, Blanchett and several other women stood together on the red carpet to symbolize solidarity and demand equality in the film world. For her, it wasn't just about Harvey Weinstein. It was about the larger system that allowed people like him to operate unchecked for so long. What makes Blanchett's approach particularly compelling is the way she's handled these situations with a calm but unmistakable strength. She hasn't shouted or accused for the sake of drama. Instead, she's used restraint, precision, and clarity to make her point. Her story with Weinstein didn't include the kind of explosive headlines that surrounded some other celebrity accounts, but that's what made it powerful. It felt real, grounded, and relatable, especially to those who have faced similar power dynamics in less visible industries. In a separate interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Blanchett elaborated on how difficult it was to work in an environment where someone could have such unchecked control over others. She explained that Weinstein's behavior wasn't just about sexual misconduct. It was about creating an atmosphere of fear, manipulation, and domination. It was about using status to push people into situations they weren't comfortable with, whether that meant professional compromises or something more personal. She described the experience as both eye-opening and deeply disappointing. It's also worth noting that Blanchett didn't use her platform to turn herself into a central figure of the movement. While she did speak up, she made sure to highlight and support the voices of others who came forward with far more traumatic stories. Her goal wasn't to center herself, but to contribute to a much-needed cultural shift. She pushed for tangible changes in hiring practices, casting dynamics, and the creation of safe working environments across all levels of film production. From this early chapter in her Hollywood journey, a clearer picture begins to form of who Cate Blanchett is when the cameras aren't rolling. She's an actor who treats her craft with seriousness and expects the same from those around her. She is not one to entertain unprofessionalism or tolerate abuses of power. Whether in private meetings or on the global stage, she speaks her mind in her own way. Measured, thoughtful, and direct. This measured tone is one of the reasons Blanchett's position holds weight. She's not known for emotional outbursts or public feuds. Her words are usually chosen carefully, and her statements are grounded in personal experience rather than hearsay or trending narratives. When she says she despises someone like Harvey Weinstein, it isn't for clickbait, it's because she has had to deal with him and witness the toxic environment he cultivated. Some critics have said Blanchett's cool, intellectual approach can sometimes come across as distant, but those close to her have described her as fiercely loyal, ethically grounded, and quietly protective of those she works with. She's known to back up younger actors on set, demand better conditions for crew members, and avoid unnecessary drama. For her, it's always been about the work and the environment in which that work happens. In the case of Harvey Weinstein, Blanchett didn't need to name every detail of what happened. Her decision to speak out, lend her support to others, and stand firm on her professional standards said enough. It showed that even someone operating at the top of Hollywood could be held accountable by those brave enough to draw a line. This experience with Weinstein didn't define Blanchett's career, but it did seem to sharpen her sense of what matters most: integrity, respect, and the courage to say no when it counts. As the rest of her story unfolds, with other major names in the industry, this pattern of quiet resistance and principled choices becomes even clearer. Cate Blanchett has worked with some of the most recognized filmmakers in the industry. Her ability to slip into complex, emotionally layered characters has earned her a reputation as one of the finest actors of her generation. But while many directors and co-stars have sung her praises, others have had much more complicated working relationships with her. Blanchett is known for her high standards and dedication to her craft. When those standards aren't met or when she feels undermined, she doesn't just move on quietly, she remembers. One of the most talked about collaborations of her career was with Woody Allen on the 2013 film Blue Jasmine. The film was a commercial and critical success, with Blanchett winning an Academy Award for Best Actress for her role as Jasmine French, a woman on the edge of emotional collapse. The film's success, however, was born out of a complicated and tense working environment. Blanchett has spoken before about how difficult the first day on set was. According to her, the tension started immediately when Allen told her, without offering any notes or direction, "It's awful, you're awful." It was a blunt comment delivered with no explanation. The moment was shocking not just because of its tone, but because of who was saying it. Woody Allen, a celebrated and often idolized director, had a reputation for being tough, but admired by many actors who had worked with him before. For Blanchett, though, this wasn't inspiring. It was jarring. She had prepared extensively for the role. In interviews, Blanchett described how she spent weeks studying the emotional layers of the character. Jasmine was a woman broken by her past, trying to hold on to dignity while spiraling into mental instability. Blanchett approached the character with precision and empathy, determined to portray her not as a stereotype, but as a fully realized human being. So to be dismissed so casually on day one was not only discouraging, it was deeply disrespectful. Blanchett didn't respond with outrage. Instead, she stayed calm, kept her composure, and continued working through the scene. But she later admitted the words stung. It wasn't just criticism, it was vague, unhelpful, and delivered in a way that felt unnecessarily cruel. She channeled that hurt into her performance. In a strange way, the emotional distance and rawness that the character required were fed by the real-life discomfort happening behind the scenes. This wasn't the only troubling part of the experience. Allen has been a controversial figure for decades, and while Blanchett has never commented publicly on the allegations surrounding his personal life, she did make a point after the film's success to clarify that she would not be working with him again. Some believed that her Oscar win may have softened her stance, but Blanchett made it clear that despite the professional achievement, the process itself was not one she wanted to repeat. The relationship between actor and director is a delicate one. It requires trust, communication, and mutual respect. Blanchett's experience on Blue Jasmine revealed how even seasoned professionals can run into fundamental clashes when those key elements are missing. She never publicly attacked Allen, but her choice to distance herself from him following the film and to speak candidly about the way she was treated on set sent a quiet but clear message. Another relationship that seemed to deteriorate under the weight of subtle hostility was the one between Blanchett and fellow Australian actor Guy Pearce. While they never shared the screen in a major production, their public interactions, or lack thereof, have sparked interest and speculation. In 2023, when Blanchett won the Critics' Choice Award for her performance in Tar, most of the industry applauded her. The film was hailed as one of her most powerful performances to date, and the win was considered well-deserved. However, Guy Pearce appeared to respond differently. On Twitter, he posted a vague but pointed remark. Fascinating choice. It was a short comment made in reply to tweets celebrating Blanchett's win. At first glance, it seemed sarcastic, but the situation escalated when he later responded to a fan sharing Blanchett's photo shoot by writing, "Oh, no thanks." The remarks came across as cold and unnecessarily dismissive. While Pearce later deleted the tweets and attempted to brush them off as sarcasm, the damage had already been done. For someone like Blanchett, who has maintained a reputation for professionalism and tends to avoid public drama, these remarks didn't go unnoticed. She never addressed them directly, but, according to reports from industry insiders, she found the comments disrespectful and indicative of a deeper resentment. It wasn't simply a matter of social media banter. In the entertainment industry, where image and perception carry significant weight, such public comments can have real consequences. Pearce's tweets sparked online debate. Some defended him, saying he was simply being playful or expressing a personal opinion. Others accused him of bitterness or jealousy. Regardless of his intent, the situation highlighted how easily reputations can be damaged by careless words. For Blanchett, who values discretion and professionalism, the remarks seemed to violate an unspoken code of respect among peers. The Australian film community is a tight-knit one. Both Blanchett and Pearce have long been seen as ambassadors of Australian talent in Hollywood. However, their differing styles may have contributed to their friction. Blanchett has always been more reserved, intellectually focused, and drawn to roles with depth and complexity. Pearce, while talented in his own right, has had a more eclectic career and has sometimes clashed with other actors and filmmakers over creative differences. Blanchett's silent response to the situation was in keeping with her overall approach to conflict. She doesn't respond with public statements or emotional outbursts. Instead, she sets clear professional boundaries. According to several reports, she has made it known privately that she has no interest in working with Pierce in the future. While she hasn't said this publicly, the message has circulated widely enough that it's become understood in the industry and tells more than, "I do not put up with this." After all, it was only down the golf course years back. What both of these stories, Woody Allen and Guy Pearce, reveal is that Blanchett doesn't entertain disrespect. She may not always speak out in the traditional sense, but she speaks through her choices. Whether it's declining future collaborations, refusing to respond to provocation, or using her platform to support larger causes, she remains consistent in her values. The tension in these stories isn't about dramatic confrontations or viral headlines. It's about deeper issues of respect, professionalism, and what happens when those values are challenged. Blanchett's responses have shown that you don't need to shout to make a statement. Sometimes silence, restraint, and simply moving forward without someone is more powerful than any public feud. These professional rifts don't necessarily define Blanchett's career, but they do offer insight into how she navigates the complexities of fame, power, and personal integrity. She has built a reputation not just on talent, but on the way she carries herself. And in a world where it's easy to get caught up in ego or drama, that kind of consistency stands out. Sometimes, tension in Hollywood isn't the result of a major scandal or a personal betrayal. Sometimes it stems from something subtler: clashing values, a stray comment, or a shift in priorities. For someone like Cate Blanchett, whose career has been defined by artistic integrity and a strong personal compass, even the smallest signs of disrespect or unprofessionalism can leave a lasting impression. And when those moments happen in public, especially among high-profile figures, they can quietly alter the course of relationships in ways the audience never fully sees. One example that stands out involves actress Blake Lively. On the surface, Blanchett and Lively might not seem like natural rivals. They represent different generations of Hollywood and have chosen very different types of roles. Blanchett has built her legacy on stage performances, complex character studies, and dramatic roles, while Lively is best known for her work in television and romantic dramas, along with a strong presence in fashion circles. Despite those differences, the two actresses crossed paths in a way that exposed underlying tensions that reportedly never got resolved. The situation began with Blanchett's long-standing relationship with the luxury brand Chanel. For nearly a decade, she had been one of the brand's most visible faces. Her campaigns were known not just for their visual elegance, but for their emotional and artistic depth. In fact, one of the most talked about projects from that collaboration was a short black and white film written by her husband, Andrew Upton. The film wasn't a traditional advertisement, it was a story, almost like a poetic short film, designed to reflect the brand's heritage while exploring themes of identity and womanhood. The project was personal. Blanchett wasn't just acting in a campaign. She and her husband had shaped the creative vision. So when she received a short, impersonal email from Chanel stating that their creative alignment is no longer in place, it was more than just a professional decision. It was a message that her ideas, her presence, and her artistic approach were no longer what the brand was looking for. Almost immediately afterward, news broke that Blake Lively would be stepping into a more prominent role as a Chanel ambassador. For most celebrities, this kind of transition wouldn't be particularly unusual. Brand partnerships come and go, and high fashion has always been about shifting images and staying relevant. But what made this specific situation feel different was the way it unfolded. The campaign Blanchett and Upton had created was quietly shelved, and Lively's arrival marked clear change in tone from moody, introspective storytelling to something more youthful and socially attuned. Blanchett didn't make any public statements about the change, and insiders say she accepted the brand's decision with her usual calm detachment. But things took a turn at a private Chanel dinner held shortly after the switch was made official. According to reports from guests who attended, the atmosphere was already tense. Blanchett arrived with her usual quiet grace, choosing to avoid the spotlight and stick with a small group of longtime collaborators and friends. Lively, on the other hand, appeared to be taking center stage, engaging loudly and confidently with guests, many of whom were fashion editors, influencers, and fellow actors. At one point during the evening, a conversation reportedly took place between Lively and another guest, during which Lively allegedly made a dismissive comment about the film written by Blanchett's husband. "That script was beautiful but a little outdated, right?" she was overheard saying. When asked what she meant, she clarified, "Andrew's script. Legacy doesn't really sell to Gen Z." According to those nearby, Lively wasn't trying to be private or discreet. The tone was loud enough that several people heard it, including Blanchett, who was seated just a couple of tables away. Now, there's no confirmation that Lively intended to insult Blanchett directly. It's possible she was speaking casually, unaware of who was nearby. But considering the setting and the subject matter, it felt personal. Blanchett had invested deeply in that project, not just professionally, but emotionally. And to hear it dismissed so publicly and so confidently was seen by many as a clear slight. Blanchett didn't respond at the dinner. She remained composed, stayed through the evening and left quietly. But sources close to her have said that the moment stayed with her. It wasn't just about the end of a brand partnership or being replaced. It was about how that transition was handled and how the new face of the brand appeared to show little awareness or respect for what had come before. For someone like Blanchett, loyalty and discretion are key. She's not the type to criticize others in interviews or air her grievances on social media, but she does set boundaries. And according to several sources within the industry, she has since made it clear, albeit privately, that she has no interest in working with Blake Lively in any capacity. This kind of quiet decision-making is typical of Blanchett's approach to conflict. Rather than engage in public feuds or back-and-forth commentary, she simply chooses who she wants to work with and who she doesn't. There's no grand statement, no dramatic confrontation, just a firm line drawn behind the scenes. It's also worth noting that Blanchett's reaction isn't about competition. She's not someone who appears threatened by newer, younger talent. Throughout her career, she's supported up-and-coming artists, produced work that highlights emerging voices, and taken on mentorship roles in theatre and film. The issue for her is not age or popularity, it's respect. And in this case, the perceived lack of it from Blake Lively seems to have crossed a line. Publicly, there's no indication that Lively meant harm or even realized the impact of her words. She has continued to thrive in the fashion world and remains a prominent figure in brand campaigns and Hollywood appearances. But the reported incident at the Chanel dinner marked a rare moment where the usually controlled private Blanchett found herself at the center of what some in the industry viewed as a public embarrassment. To be fair, the worlds of fashion and film often overlap in ways that create unexpected tension. Celebrity endorsements are as much about image as they are about art. And in many cases, transitions between brand ambassadors can feel abrupt and impersonal. But when those transitions involve someone as invested as Cate Blanchett, and when the new face of a brand seems to casually dismiss years of creative work, it's understandable why emotions might run high, even if those emotions remain hidden from the public eye. In the end, this story isn't about a rivalry between two actresses. It's about a moment that represented something bigger, a change in values, a shift in tone, and a clash between two very different approaches to storytelling and image. For Blanchett, whose career has been defined by substance, consistency, and depth, the situation was a reminder that not everyone shares the same priorities, and while she may not speak about it publicly, her choices moving forward will likely reflect what she values most: integrity, respect, and the quiet power of knowing when to walk away.